Right now, the Cowboys are not a good organization. This will go down as one of the worst trades in the history of their football team and their organization.
They're watching the tape and finding out things that may or may not fit.
Micah Parsons being added to your team, signal from the front office, this team is ready.
You know what's worse than watching your team lose? Watching them lose in a way that makes history for all of the wrong reasons. And right now, the Dallas Cowboys are writing a chapter in their history book that Jerry Jones would probably pay millions to erase. Through 3 games, the Dallas Cowboys have allowed 92 points. Let me put that into perspective for you. That's the 4th most points that they've allowed to open a season in franchise history. And here's the scary part. The 3 other times that happened, they missed the playoffs every single time. But wait, it gets way worse, because this Sunday night, they're about to face someone who knows every single weakness in their defense. Someone that used to be the heart and soul of that defense. Somebody who's now wearing green and gold and is absolutely salivating at the chance for revenge. I'm talking about this guy.
And sometimes, just like today, you the bed.
Honestly, I will say it's kind of funny because I feel like I've seen Micah Parsons give this kind of post-game press conference when he was on the Dallas Cowboys. So seeing him do it for the Green Bay Packers was slightly satisfying. Nothing against you Packers fans. It's just the worse record you have, the better pick the Cowboys have. And unfortunately, I'm cursed with being a fan of this team. But before we get to that disaster waiting to happen, let me walk you through just how bad things have gotten in Dallas. Because what happened in Chicago on Sunday wasn't just a loss. It was an embarrassment that exposed every single flaw in the Dallas Cowboys defense. So real quick before we get to today's video, this video is sponsored. I'll be the first to admit I may have been a little bit too aggressive on our last free square. We still hit on my Instagram story multiple times over the weekend, and I promise you this play is going to be way safer. PrizePicks is now giving us a Jalen Hurts free square. They're going to give us 2 more free squares to close out September. Now, personally, I'm saving this free square for later on in the weekend, and if you want to take advantage of this promo, make sure you use my promo code Mikerophone when you sign up for PrizePicks to get $50 in free plays when you make a play of $5 or more. Once you sign up, feel free to tail this slip for Thursday Night Football. I have Trey Benson stepping up for the Cardinals in his first official start, finding the end zone at least once. His kicker, Chad Ryland, will kick 2 field goals, Sam Darnold will throw at least 1 pass touchdown, and Jackson Smith-Njigba will have at least 50 receiving yards. I'm personally saving the Jalen Hurts free square until next weekend's games, but if you add the Hurts free square to this, you can 8.5x your money, but if not, you can still 4.5x your money by tailing the slip. Now, if you already signed up for PrizePicks, I teamed up with Fantasy Aces, who have been profiting on a daily basis in multiple sports, in the WAP link in the description down below, and I also give away my picks on Instagram. And thank you PrizePicks for sponsoring today's video. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? We gotta start this video with an incredibly mind-blowing stat. Caleb Williams, the second-year quarterback who is still finding his footing in the NFL. We literally made a video on him just this past week. This man had the game of his life against Dallas and his former head coach, Matt Eberflus. Not only did he throw for 298 yards and 4 touchdowns, which would be impressive enough, but for the first time in his NFL career, Caleb Williams wasn't sacked. Not once. Think about that for a second. The Dallas Cowboys, a team that used to pride themselves on defense just 2 years ago, couldn't touch a second-year quarterback who's been struggling in the NFL so far this year. They generated exactly 1 quarterback pressure all game. 1! And it wasn't like Caleb Williams was getting the ball out quick on little dump-offs. No, the Chicago Bears were trolling the Dallas Cowboys out there. They ran a flea flicker that went for a 65-yard touchdown to Luther Burden III. When was the last time you saw a team comfortable enough to run trick plays against the Dallas Cowboys? And here's Ben Johnson on why they ran a flea flicker.
We have gadgets up every week. I give the staff a lot of credit. They're watching the tape and finding out things that may or may not fit, whether it was Dallas this year or some of the stuff we're watching of Chicago's defense from yesteryear. So that was really a staff find, and like I said, we worked it all week and felt really comfortable calling it this week.
Brian Schottenheimer, the Cowboys' first-year head coach, tried to explain it away after the game, saying, "I thought we got pressure on him, but we just couldn't finish it. We were around, we just couldn't get him on the ground." But here's the thing, being around doesn't count in the NFL. You either get there or you don't. And the Cowboys, they're just not getting there. Now you might be thinking, okay, maybe it was just a bad game. Everybody has bad games. But guys, in week 1, you could say it's a fluke. In week 2, that's when you start to get concerned. In week 3, that's your team's identity. Just last week, Russell Wilson, 36-year-old 20-year-old Russell Wilson, who everyone thought was washed in given how his game ended versus the Kansas City Chiefs, where he literally threw the ball away on 4th and goal. I think it's safe to say he is washed. You know, a man that is on the verge of getting benched by the New York Giants. Hell, maybe by the time I already put this video up, he did get benched by the New York Giants. Threw for 450 yards against this defense. 450 yards. Guys, that is 748 passing yards and 7 touchdown passes in 2 games from Caleb Williams and Russell Wilson. And according to ESPN research, the Cowboys have now allowed the most completions and passing touchdowns of 25 yards or more through 3 games in the past 45 years. But the absolute gut punch against Chicago was the Bears had a 19-play, 76-yard touchdown drive in the 3rd quarter that ate up 9 minutes and 54 seconds. That is the longest drive given up by the Cowboys this century, and it's the longest scoring drive they've allowed this century in terms of time of possession. At one point during that drive, the Bears ran the ball 11 straight times. They weren't even trying to be creative. They were basically saying, we're gonna run it down your throat, and there's nothing you can do about it, which is really comical because wasn't the whole reason the Cowboys traded Micah Parsons in the first place was in order to stop the run?
This was a move to be better on defense, stopping the run.
Jerry Jones, never one to mince words, summed it up perfectly. We weren't getting there, plus we weren't covering them. That's a bad combination. All right, Jerry, that's a good way to put it. Now, I know what some of you guys are thinking, but wait, didn't the Cowboys trade Micah Parsons? Maybe that's why the defense is struggling so much. And you'd be absolutely right to think that, because what happened with Parsons might go down as one of the most consequential trades in Cowboys history, at least for now. The Cowboys shipped their best defensive player, an individual that's led the NFL in pass rush win rate every single year since he's been in the NFL, to Green Bay for Kenny Clark and 2 first-round picks. Kenny Clark is a good player. He's a 3-time Pro Bowler, but he's also about to turn 30, while Micah Parsons is 26, just signed a 4-year, $188 million deal with the Green Bay Packers. That makes him the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. Since drafting Parsons in 2021, the Cowboys were first in defensive EPA per play when he was on the field, and when he wasn't on the field, they ranked dead last. It's kind of crazy that they had this data and still decided to trade him anyway, but I'm assuming the main reason they made this trade is because it's not like they were going to win the Super Bowl even if they kept Micah Parsons. So if they're trending towards a rebuild, I at least give them props for accepting reality here. But we're now seeing the consequences of that trade. The Cowboys pass rush is basically non-existent. Their top edge rusher now is Dante Fowler Jr. So far, they've been hoping that 2nd-round rookie Donovan Izuraku can somehow fill Micah Parsons' shoes, which is pretty much like asking Mac Jones to replace Tom Brady. So far through 3 games, the Cowboys defense have only allowed 3 sacks, and Jerry Jones himself admitted after the Bears game that it compromised us with our 4-man front up there today. We want to try and get there in this defense with that 4-man rush. We weren't getting there, plus we weren't covering, and that's a bad combination. And here's where it gets really interesting, or terrifying if you're a Cowboy fan. Remember how I mentioned at the beginning that they're facing someone this Sunday who knows all of their weaknesses? Parsons is facing off against the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. When asked about the trade, he initially said, "I'm going to be ready. I'm going to be here to win games, and I'm going to push these guys to do what we have to do to prove this organization was right about me." When you combine that with the Cowboys' current offensive situation, and it's just not looking good for the Cowboys on national TV, on top of not being able to cover at all whatsoever, and by the way, like, I don't even need to do a deep dive on this footage. If you take a look at all of the Bears' touchdowns, it's not like they were destroying the Dallas Cowboys with their schemes. The Cowboys straight up weren't covering. I mean, look at this DJ Moore touchdown. Nobody was even close to him. The Cowboys defense just looks confused. Look at this Cole Kmet touchdown. The man is all alone in the end zone, for crying out loud. But that's just the defense. I mean, offensively, CeeDee Lamb left the Bears game early with an ankle injury. He got it rolled up in the first quarter and tried to come back but couldn't continue. The good news is both Lamb and Jerry Jones seem optimistic that he may be able to play against the Packers. CeeDee even said he could absolutely play through it, even though NFL.com says he's going to be out for 2 games minimum with a high ankle sprain. If CeeDee plays, he's not even going to be 100%. Now, the Dallas Cowboys offense hasn't been terrible. They're ranked 5th in scoring at 30 points per game. They have George Pickens now, and he's been solid throughout the first couple of games of his Cowboys career, even coming down with 2 touchdowns throughout his first 3 games. Javonte Williams legitimately looked like Emmitt Smith back there for the first couple of games of the season, at least in terms of his running style. So it's not like everything is terrible here, but the thing is, the Dallas Cowboys essentially have to play the same game as the Cincinnati Bengals when Joe Burrow's fully healthy. You can't count on the defense to make any plays, but your offense needs to be absolutely prolific if you want to stay in these games. When you're giving up 31 points to the Bears and letting quarterbacks throw for career highs against you every week, it doesn't matter how many points you score. And what's damning is the historical context here. Remember those 92 points allowed through 3 games? In 2000, when they gave up 94 points in Dave Campo's first season as head coach, they finished with a 5-11 record. In 2020, Mike McCarthy's first season, they allowed 97 points and finished 6-10. Now, Brian Schottenheimer is in his first season, and history is repeating itself. Except this time, they don't have their best defensive player to potentially turn things around. They traded him away for first-round picks and an aging defensive tackle. The really frustrating part about all this was all so avoidable. I mean, I've shown you this Rachel Nichols clip before.
If they first extended Dak, they would have saved $49 million. If they first extended CeeDee Lamb, they would have saved $14 million. And if he had extended Micah last year, he could have saved $36 million. And that all adds up to about $99 million you could have been paying other players.
The Cowboys have a history of dragging out contract negotiations with their stars. They did it with Dak Prescott, they did it with CeeDee Lamb, and both times they eventually paid up and signed them both to record-setting contracts. But with Micah Parsons, they drew a line in the sand. Why? Because according to sources close to Jerry Jones, it came down to this. For Jerry, it came back to, we have to be able to stop the run. Micah does not do that. In fact, because we couldn't stop the run, it made Micah less effective. That's some galaxy brain logic right there. Our pass rusher can't stop the run, so let's trade him and have no pass rush at all. And now the Packers, who already had the 4th best defense in EPA per play last season, added the best pass rusher in football. Meanwhile, the Cowboys are out here making Caleb Williams look like prime Aaron Rodgers. Trevon Diggs, trying to explain what went wrong against the Bears, said, "We got the calls in, we just didn't execute." Gave up some big plays in the beginning of the game, and just from there, it was a snowball effect. But it's not just execution. When you can't generate any pass rush, when quarterbacks have all day to throw, when teams are running flea flickers on you just for fun, that's not an execution problem, that's a talent problem. That's a we traded away our best player for pennies on the dollar problem. The Cowboys are playing zone coverage at the highest rate in the league because they don't have the personnel to play man coverage. Deron Bland is still out with a foot injury, and they're starting undrafted rookies in the secondary. And this Sunday night on national television, they have to face the guy who used to cover up all these flaws. Parsons knows every weakness, every tendency, every play call. He practiced against this offense for 4 years. He knows exactly where Dak Prescott likes to step up in the pocket. He knows the snap count tendencies. He knows it all. You want to know the real kicker? NBC was already scheduled to air Packers Cowboys in week 4. They probably thought that they were just going to get a good old rivalry game. Instead, they're getting must-watch revenge television. The Cowboys are 1-2 right now. Based on history, teams that allow this many points through 3 games don't make the playoffs. They're facing a Packers team that just added the best pass rusher in football to an already elite defense. Their secondary is held up with duct tape and prayer. Their pass rush is non-existent. Look, I get that Jerry Jones wanted to prove a point. I get that contract negotiations can get ugly. I get that the Cowboys offered Micah Parsons enough to be the highest paid edge rusher in football. And honestly, I feel like their hands were tied this entire situation. But it was a self-inflicted tying of hands. If they paid everyone on time, there's no question in my mind that CD, Micah, and Dak could have been a Super Bowl contender. For some reason, Jerry Jones still believes this is a playoff caliber team. I've said it from the very beginning of this season. This team is not going to sniff the playoffs. If it wasn't for the Commanders and the Eagles being in the same division as them, it's because this team has gotten significantly worse defensively. But they knew that when they made this trade wasn't going to be a quick fix to make them Super Bowl contenders. This was a trade for the future. The only hope that the Cowboys have is the fact that they could pull off what the Browns pulled off this past weekend, and I'm not really holding my breath for that. Obviously, I'm going to be bringing you guys a reaction video at the conclusion of the game. Try to take it easy on me in the comment section of that video because it's already been very difficult covering this story on this channel. If you're a Cowboy fan, let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about all this. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload. Can't believe we lost to a quarterback that paints his nails.